the house where love once lived. There's a certain kind of silence that doesn't come from peace, but from absence. It hums beneath the surface like the low drone of the last train pulling away from an empty station. If you sit with it long enough, it seeps into your chest. And sometimes it starts with a photograph. A family frozen in time, hands held tight, smiles sincere. Happiness so vivid it hurts. But time, as it always does, moves forward. And in its wake people change. Sometimes love softens into routine. Sometimes it decays into distance. And sometimes it simply vanishes. Elias Moran never rushed into love. He was a man carved by restraint, not passion. Steady, observant. His emotions lived behind a quiet demeanor, shaped by past heartbreaks that taught him that affection, once given too freely, could become ammunition in the wrong hands. Then he met Claire Rowan. She wasn't loud or theatrical, but she had this quiet fire in her, the kind that flickered behind her eyes and burned in her convictions. She twirled her hair when nervous. She asked bold questions. She smiled like she meant it. Elias found himself doing things he never had before. Small, deliberate acts of love. Picking up the obscure book she'd once said changed her life at 16. Bringing her lemon scones on cloudy afternoons. Leaving notes tucked inside her laptop bag. You're doing better than you think. He never needed recognition. He loved in silence, like the morning coffee he brewed daily before she woke. And slowly, Claire let her guard down. She'd known men who spoke in fireworks, promises that dazzled and died just as quickly. But Elias, he didn't make loud declarations. He simply showed up, again and again. When she got sick with the flu one winter, Elias took time off work without hesitation. He sat beside her, read aloud from books she loved, whispered jokes, ran cool cloths across her forehead. He never once made her feel like a burden. "I'm not used to being someone's first choice," she'd whispered one night. He took her hand and simply said, "You are mine." They married in autumn under a canopy of amber leaves with only their closest friends present. Then came the children. First their son Jonah, bright-eyed and colicky, whose cries Elias rocked away with gentle lullabies. Then 2 years later, their daughter Mira, born with lungs that could shatter glass and a laugh that made strangers turn and smile. Their life wasn't glamorous, but it was full. Picnics in the park, forts made of blankets and giggles, dinners that ended in dancing around a messy kitchen. Elias kept old movie stubs and labeled family albums like sacred scrolls. He fought hard to hold on to the joy, to freeze time. But time refused to be held. The first fracture was barely noticeable. Claire became quieter, distracted. Elias chalked it up to exhaustion, the relentlessness of parenthood. He doubled down on support, took on more chores, planned date nights, bought her favorite wine on Wednesdays just because. But nothing seemed to reach her anymore. Then one night everything broke. She sat on the couch, hugging a throw pillow as if it were a life vest. Her lips quivered as she whispered, "I slept with someone." The words didn't explode. They imploded, collapsing the quiet world Elias had built piece by piece. She said it meant nothing, that she felt lost, that it was a moment of weakness. But to Elias it meant everything. He didn't yell, didn't scream. He simply disappeared into the bedroom, returned with a pillow and blanket, and set them on the guest bed. "You'll sleep here," he said, calm but detached. Not forgiveness, not rage, just a closing door. That night, Claire curled up on the guest mattress and wept until the sheets were soaked with regret. But Elias was silent, and that silence was louder than any rage she'd feared. In the morning she made breakfast. He took his coffee, said nothing, never met her eyes. Later that day, Claire sat at the kitchen table and wrote a letter. Poured out her guilt, her fear, her foolishness. She didn't try to justify. She just needed him to understand. She placed it on his pillow. When she returned that night, the letter was untouched, still sealed. The next morning it was gone. And in its place a single note. I read it. 3 words. But no thaw. He came home later. Smiled less. Laughed with the kids, but never with her. He changed routines. Cut contact with the man she'd betrayed him with. Rearranged her entire schedule just to show she was trying. Elias noticed, but said nothing. Let's try therapy, she said. For the kids, he replied. In session, Claire spoke honestly. Told the therapist how empty she had felt. How unseen. How she'd sought validation in the worst place possible. Elias listened. Nodded. But all he said was, that doesn't undo what you did. Months passed. She kept trying. One evening she recreated their wedding night. Photos, songs, cake. Elias looked around and said, You've always known how to make things look nice. She didn't cry until he left the room. Eventually she stopped hoping. Until one name started appearing more and more. Tessa. Coworker. Friendly. Harmless. Until the kids mentioned how funny she was. How she liked the same movies. How Daddy and Tessa brought their dogs to the same park. Claire didn't confront him. She watched. Waited. One day a mutual friend tagged a photo on social media. Elias was smiling. Really smiling. The kids were there. And in the background, unmistakably, was Tessa. Claire didn't ask. But that night she stood in the kitchen and said, You look happier when you're not here. He didn't deny it. I still love you, she said. But loving someone who doesn't love you back, it breaks you. I want a divorce, she added. After a long pause, Elias responded, If that's what you want, I understand. The next weeks passed like a funeral in slow motion. They told the kids. Moved through legal motions with quiet efficiency. Then, something unexpected. Claire started feeling sick. First she thought it was stress. Until a test confirmed otherwise. Pregnant. The timeline. The one night they'd made love in Hawaii. She considered keeping it secret. But she didn't. She met him at a cafe. Passed him the envelope. He read the results. Looked up. It's mine. She nodded. He sat quietly. Then reached across the table and took her hand. Not as her husband, but as the father of her child. We'll figure it out, he said. And maybe that's where this story leaves them. Not with a perfect ending. Not back together. But in a place where 2 people broken by love still found the strength to show up for the life they created together. Not all wounds heal. Not all loves survive. But sometimes, even in the aftermath, there's something worth salvaging. Even if it's just a shared future reimagined.